Hello all, how are you doing? Hope you are doing well. In this video, we are going to see how to switch between multiple languages in Flutter app. In our previous video, we have seen how to implement localization in Flutter, and we have also used the title, localized or translated title in our application. So we have our app running. Now, in this video, we are going to see how to implement switching option, maybe the drop down with language list where you select and it gets applied, the translation applied. So we are going to use English and Spanish for sample in this video. Let's get into the video. We'll start making changes. That's the first step. One is to add the drop down in the home page, right side of the title. Here we are going to add the drop down language selector. Okay, how to do it? We'll go to our main.dart file first. We'll see how quickly. There is no other changes we have done. The first step, we are going to add in the main.dart file along with the title, we are going to add actions. So here it is called actions. So in this actions, we are going to add drop down list. One drop down which will have all the necessary list of language which we are going to use. So this is going to be drop down list. Okay, so this is using language model. So we don't have this language model class, so we are going to create under lib. There is a directory called model. Under that we are going to create a dot file called language model. What it will contain? It will contain two properties: string type, code, and name. And there is a constructor for language model which will accept code and name. And there is a two JSON method which will convert code name as a JSON map. Okay, so this is what we are going to have in the language model. Please ignore the errors, as and when we build it will be rectified. Okay, so we don't have this language selector, now we are implementing it. Okay, let's go back. Here we will import our language model here. Okay, the error is gone. Now under drop down we need to add some more things. What are the things? We are going to add theme, and we are going to add background color. These are all not mandatory stuff, but we are adding for making it a little bit good looking. And then important part is items. So item as an array of language model object to be added here. How we are going to add? We are going to define a new array where in this top, in this state, which is called languages, and it is a empty array, and I'm going to have a chosen value. So there will be some value will be chosen, right? That chosen value I'm storing in the language model, and I have to add value list of languages to languages array because it is empty. I will do it inside a method called init state. So in Flutter, init state is the method which will be called during the initialization of this dot file. So there I add two languages, English and Spanish. So the code is en and es. Okay, now we have added languages file, and the languages file I'm going to use it in the actions drop down. value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the languages map each drop down menu item with the value where name in the text and the real value into the drop down menu item, and I am converting it to a list because item needs a list. Okay, that's fine, done. Now we need to add the hint. It will display language in the drop down, and then there is another important method which is called unchanged. So this will have our when there is a selection happening, what should happen, that will be written here, that logic will be written here. Okay, so that should be under set state. At least what we'll do, we'll now set the chosen date when there is a selection happen. So to summarize what I have done, I have added a actions portion to the app, or I went to we are in main dot file. I added a actions element in the app bar element, okay, along with title. So in the actions, I added drop down button, and I drop down button, I added a languages list, and I have also added chosen value. Chosen value, I will put it later, where here in the value oh, element. What I mean is we have to show the chosen value every time, right? It should not be please select language, something like that. So I will comment it, comment it later, but time being, as it is, we will go ahead. We'll see the page. Yeah, we see the drop down button. Now we have added en and es. The next step is to add supported locale. So far what we have done is we have directly added here supported locales here. Instead, we are going to separate this portion to the separate file, which is called supported locale.dart file. Supported locale. So the file is called supported locale, where I'm going to have a class L10n, and which will have the list of supported locales here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use L10n here instead of doing it here. Dot support. So the locale supported locale. So I'm going to import L10n now and put comma here. That's it. So what we have done is we have just moved this array to separate file. Okay, fine. So this is the next step which we have already done it. This one. So we have added the actions element in the app bar, and then we have added the language model file. Now we have also added the supported locale dot file, which is having just a list of supported locales, en and es Spanish. The next step is to introduce locale provider in the main dot file. Before that, we are going to create a locale provider dot file under lib. So what is provider? So provider is the thing which is basically a package in Flutter, and it is a wrapper around inherited widget. There is something called inherited widget. The term from the term itself, you will know it is a class, base class and subclass stuff. So it is a wrapper around inherited widget, the provider, and the provider is providing the state management for what? We have a data which has to be managed across the application. In that situation, the provider package is providing the state management technique for managing such a data. The data example in our scenario is locale. So you have two selections, right? English and Spanish. Whatever language you have selected has to be maintained across the application. So for that, we are going to use provider. So please keep in mind, provider is something which is something helping to manage the data around the app using state management. That's all. You can also refer more documentation, official documentation from Flutter in the Google. I will move on to creating a local provider. So the local provider I'm going to create inside lib. I'm going to create a directory called provider. Okay, just it's not mandatory. It's your wish. I'm just for the cleaning sake, I'm creating the directory. Then I'm going to create a file called locale underscore provider. Okay, what it is going to have? So this is going to have a class called locale provider with change notifier. So it is going to have class called locale provider with change notifier. So the change notifier is something which will tell the provider and consumer, okay, hey, there is a change happened. There is, in our case, there is a selection, language selection happened. Please inform the or notify the consumers of this particular provider. So the provider is providing the changes notification and consumers will consume the changed values. That's what happening. It's going to happen in our case. Okay. Now we are going to have a default locale, and then we are going to have one method and two methods which is going to help us setting locale and clearing locale. Setting locale, when it will help, I mean when it will be helpful, when you are selecting the language, we'll call set locale, and clear locale if whenever you want to clear the locale. Okay, we are done with the locale provider class, which is going to be providing changes notification to the classes which is there in the stack. Okay, or consumers. So now the next step is to include the provider package in the pubspec file. So we are going to use provider package as I mentioned earlier. So we have to add in the pubspec file, YAML file, where we have to add along with the intl. So the latest version is 6.0.2. I'm going to use the same. So I added this one and I am saving it and getting pubget. Okay. So it is now downloaded, hopefully. Then next step would be the important step, wrap provider in the main. So now we have added provider, we have added the drop down box, and we have also added supported locale, and we have to add the provider and consumer inside the main method. Then only whenever there's a change happened, the consumer will retrieve the changes and it will look for the new translated selected language translation and apply it. Before that, what we have to do, since we are introducing Spanish translation also, what we have to do, so we have two properties, app title and message. So message is the one which is there inside. When you are clicking counter, it will say, okay, these many times you have clicked. So title and the message, yeah, here I'm talking about. I'm talking about this message, this text and this title, both we have applied translation now. So we have to introduce Spanish also for that. So I'm copying and pasting here the app.en. Instead, I'm going to change es and this will have Spanish translation. Spanish translation for shopping, and the message which we see, I have already taken it from Google. I'm going to put it. Done. Okay, we have added our own Spanish translation as well. At the end, we will clean and rebuild the project, whole project. Okay. Now we have added this one, and let me check the steps. Okay, we have added everything. The fifth step is pending. We have to add listeners and consumer. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have main.dart file, which is the only file we have. And here we need to we need to convert this my app build material app and wrap around the change notification provider. I'll tell you how. So we have to convert this into consumer so that whenever there is a change happen, this will be notified. Okay, how to do that? We are going to introduce a return. So you have to build, you have to wrap around the material app, the change notification provider, which is a consumer. So you are going to have a consumer, which is locale provider, which we have already created, and the consumer is coming from the provider package. That's why we have to add the dependency, and then we want to add it. Okay, we have converted this to a consumer. Now we have to close one more, I think. Yep, and we are okay now. Okay, now we have created a consumer. Now we have to wrap around run app should be wrapped around change notification provider now. So what I mean, we have to create a local provider and say the Flutter that this is going to be our provider across this application for this particular change. So this is what it means. I have introduced change notification provider, which is type of local provider, and I create a local provider, and I bundle and I wrap around the my app application. Okay, now it is done. The next step is to use this widget ensure initialized to avoid any glitches. What it does is it completes all the binding which needs to be done before running the application. Okay, fine. So now we have added everything. The next step is to add main.file. We have added everything, I guess. One more thing we have to add is the locale. So the current locale and what would be the selected locale. So the locale has to be set because that is the main thing. Whenever you change the locale, the changed locale has to be used here in this application file. And also when you are selecting it, the new locale has to be set to the chosen value, as well as we have to call locale provider dot set locale method with the new selected locale value. That is very important, otherwise the changes will not be reflected. So how to do that? Go to main.dart provider of locale provider context listen false set locale. What is the locale which is selected? In the new value we are going to use code. Okay, fine. So now pretty much we have done it, or done all the step. So we are going to clean it, and you see lots of error. Please ignore. We'll clean, we'll stop the application, we'll do flutter clean, and then we will generate again L10, sorry, flutter clean will do. It takes time. Okay, now we are going to run flutter gen L10n. Okay, now I'm going to run this application to the emulator. So now we'll be able to see the language selection drop down in the home page. Then when you select Spanish, the text and title should be changed. Looks like our application has been installed into emulator. Let's see whether it is working or not. We'll go to language selection. Okay, we see two languages. I select Spanish. Okay, it is changed to Spanish. So it means our implementation is working. So happy. We have now implemented the IL10N localization with multiple languages, English and Spanish, and selection also working. So I select English back, so it is changed to English. So that is what I wanted to see in this video. So to quickly summarize, we have added actions button in the right hand side, and we have added language model, we have added supported locale, and we have introduced translation for title and the message, and also we have introduced this new concept called provider package in this session, and we have bundled all the provider and consumer inside the main.dart file. So you have to remember that provider and consumer both are important, and how to inform the consumer, we have to introduce change notifier in the main.dart file. That is very important, that we have done it in the main method. Run under run app, we have done the change notification locale provider method. So that's all folks. We have just implemented localization in our Flutter application. So the next session would be implementing Firebase integration with our Flutter application. Stay tuned. I'm also excited. So this is a series basically, plain starting from plain Flutter app. Then we have added localization. Then we have added switching between multiple languages now in this tutorial. And the next tutorial would be integrating with Firebase, Google Firebase with our Flutter app. Thank you. Thanks for watching.